Okay, welcome to the other side of medicine, everyone. I'm Dr. James Krystosik. You can call me Dr. J. And the other side of medicine, as you know, is a program that helps people to take an active role in their healthcare so you can become independently healthy. And today we have a special guest with us, internationally known speaker, author, all kinds of accolades could go to this man. He's been a really pioneer and leader in the natural healthcare field for many years, and has been somebody who's I've admired all of his work that he's done. He's done many various projects over the years, public broadcasting, um, interviews, and public broadcasting documentaries. It's Gary Null, and he is an extraordinary author, prolific speaker, and it's a privilege to have him on the program today. But before we get to meet him, I just wanted to share, we're going to be talking today about ultra-processed foods. The American population is addicted to processed foods. And recently, the New York Times Daily Podcast did a little episode on ultra-processed foods. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think there's a lot of shortcomings with that. And it was certainly a very, very should have been talked about many, many years ago, but they just recently brought this up. It's overdue. And so we're going to get into that. The American population, as I said, is addicted to these processed foods. We have chronic diseases at epidemic levels here in this country. 50% of the population has at least one chronic disease. And this is getting out of control. We have 1 out of 2 deaths are caused from heart attacks. 2 out of 3 deaths are caused from heart attacks, cancer, and diabetes. And so we need to do something about this. And Gary Null has been a leader in trying to educate people about the dangers of these ultra-processed foods. So without further ado, I really want to really welcome, with a warm welcome, this very special gentleman. Gary, welcome to the other side of medicine.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Yeah, so did you get an opportunity or chance to listen to the daily podcast and their episode they did on the ultra-processed foods?
Yes, and I think you make very important points. And that is that the New York Times is supposed to be the paper of record. And for a long time it was. But then around the 1970s, in the Church hearings, Senator Church, he found that there had been complicity and co-option of the truth by the CIA infiltrating the media. At that time, he was able to elicit that nearly 1,400 news outlets had been influenced by information that the CIA wanted to control. They could stop negative news that they didn't want anyone to know about, and they could posit positive information. And they've done it ever since. In fact, it's expanded so much that we went from 1,300 news outlets to around 7. 7 major corporations control the news. Unfortunately, most of those are political. They have weaponized stories. They lie. And so when I get anything in the mainstream media from networks or newspapers that tells the truth, I say, good. But why did you have to wait 60 years? Because 60 years ago, we knew about processed foods. In fact, on WMCA radio in 1973, mind you, that's 52 years ago, I interviewed a Dr. Feingold. He was a San Francisco physician, and he found that with children who were acting out, now what we call ADHD, and back then they just called it hyperactivity, that those kids were having too much processed and ultra-processed foods. And I think we should not try to distinguish that ultra-processed and processed versus more natural. There have been best-selling books written by people who I know that were inaccurate. Like don't have grains in your diet. That's nonsense, because whole grains are an important part of our diet, just like legumes and beans, nuts and seeds. And the nuts and seeds, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seeds, chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, those are great. They're high in fiber, high in the omega-3 fatty acids, which helps our brain stay younger longer, turning off inflammation. They can help reduce all forms of neurological conditions, from Alzheimer's to dementia to Parkinson's, and also help our heart.
Yeah, so Gary, I'm really glad that you brought this up, because we have right now a lot of diet wars going on. There's the paleo and the keto, and now even the crazy carnivore. And you bring up a really wonderful point, that whole grains have been used for thousands and thousands of years. And the people in the blue zones eat the whole grains and the legumes and the beans, and they have the highest level of longevity of anywhere in the world. And it's been proven unequivocally with science that these foods, whole foods, are nutrient dense, and they really provide, a lot of energy for the body. And we don't end up with diabetes and heart disease because of whole grains. We end up with diabetes and heart disease because of excess amount of the wrong kind of fats, the hydrogenated oils, the saturated fats, and the high sugar diets that are processed foods. So I'm so glad you brought that point up.
Let's take it one step further off what you just said, please. The number one cause of disease are not trans fats. That's what you get when you boil the oil, which is very toxic, and you end up French frying something, you turn it brown. A bagel, you turn it brown. A sandwich, the crust is brown. Potato chips are brown. Anytime you brown anything, you create what are known as acrylamides. Acrylamides are pro-inflammatory. Now, that's for the bun, but what about the meat, whether it's bacon, fish, cheese, anything that goes on that bun, it has to be cooked in order to kill the bacteria, like Listeria and others that would impact us and adversely affect us. Well, then you create heterocyclic amines. These are very carcinogenic. And now you've got two known carcinogens together in a sandwich. And you say, okay, well, that certainly is a cause of disease. Physical disease, yes, but so too is high fructose corn syrup in all of our soft drinks and pastries. That leads to non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. Now, when I was growing up, you were growing up, we didn't have anything called non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. If you had liver disease, it was generally because you were taking in too much alcohol. And by the way, how much is too much alcohol? Because from the late 1970s, right through until about 3 or 4 years ago, we were told that a glass of alcohol a day is good for you. There's no such thing as a safe glass of alcohol. Not a glass of wine, not a beer. Everything that has alcohol destroys cells. It's like a chemotherapy. It is a DNA terminator. But because we have so many cells, maybe around 50 trillion, depending upon our size, we can kill a lot of cells and we won't notice it. But there was a very famous actor named Errol Flynn. He died at age 50. He looked 100 because he drank a whole bottle of, I think it was either gin or vodka a day, and it just destroyed his liver. Now, the liver is wonderful. 60% of your liver you can regrow. Kidneys you can't, the heart you can't, the brain you can't. And then you start seeing people that drink, not even to excess, what they consider moderate. But how much of a moderate toxin is good for you? How about none? Mm-hmm. So now we know fluoride is a neurotoxin, destroys brain cells. In a simple glass, 1 part per million will kill cells. Dr. John Yamianis from Ohio State University, chemist, and one of the co-founders of the National Cancer Institute, Dr. Dean Burke, I knew them both. And they were the ones who discovered that fluoride in water alone causes an additional 15,000 cancer deaths per year. And that was in the 1970s. So what is the big cause of disease? Heart disease, cancer, arthritis, pro-inflammatory diseases like ileitis, colitis, spastic colon, diverticulitis. Yes, alcohol. Yes, sugars. Yes, animal protein, animal fats, arachidonic acid. Yes, and the more processed they are, the more problems you have. But the number one cause of all disease is propaganda.
That's a good point. I've
And
never
unfortunately,
heard that one, Gary. That's awesome. I love that. And by the way, Gary, the average American wakes up to coffee and donuts, and then they have sugar-laden cereals, and then they go to lunch and they end up having cookies and cakes, and they go to dinner and they have ice cream and cheesecakes and all kinds of sugar all throughout the day. And of course, they're eating white bread and white pasta. And by the way, I tell people the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. When we eat this way and we're eating 65 to 70% of our foods from these processed foods, what else do you expect but getting chronic disease?
well, what you get is more important than the chronic disease or acute inflammatory disease. You get adapted, maladapted, and acceptable of being an addict without being aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the average American is a hardcore addict. At least 92% of the American population every day intentionally choose the wrong foods, the wrong activities into their life, all of which are shown, like a sedentary, sitting for more than 2 hours can cause all forms of problems with circulation to the extremities. You got to get up and you got to exercise, do some deep knee bends. And or I even have this machine where you sit and your feet go like this. So it's exercising, circulating blood. It cost me $100.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I'll show it to you. See this?
Yeah.
All right. You're just sitting there and you turn it on and it's getting you to go like this. So it's like you're running and you can go
I love
different
it.
speeds.
I love it.
So
Hey, Gary, I
circulation.
really like what you just said about the number one cause of disease is propaganda. I've never heard that before, and I think that's absolutely profound statement. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Because I just never heard
Okay,
that.
I'll be happy to. Preceding that, its progenitor is, do you seek the truth in every choice you make before you make the choice? Because if we seek the truth, a universal truth, not a personal truth, because you can have a personal truth that is wrong. And if enough people have a collective psychoses, now you have a collective psychoses, like you didn't get the vaccine, therefore you're a danger to society, you're selfish. Look at us, we all got the vaccines. Now don't bother with our myocarditis, highest in history, and it's not, according to Lewinsky, head of the CDC, it's not transient, it's forever. And once you have any form of scarring of the heart, that's going to create an imbalance in the heart receiving electrical impulses. And when those impulses become irregular, now you end up with AFib or tachycardia and die of a stroke. Don't concern yourself with that. Don't concern yourself with self-organizing lipid particles that form not tiny little red blood cells, but white clots. What's a white clot? We've never had a white clot in history. No, we haven't. And we've never had turbo cancers where you go from an inflammation of the right breast. There's a friend of mine who's a nurse. Her husband's a doctor. She didn't get the vaccine. He did, but she didn't understand that anyone gets a vaccine, they shed it. So it's sleeping together at night, breathing it. And the side that she sleeps on, right side, he slept there. Now she ends up with an infection. She calls me, Gary, I got an inflammation in my breast. I live a healthy diet and lifestyle. I said, were you vaccinated? No. Was your husband? Yes, twice. Okay. Then you've got to look at shedding. I said, watch it carefully. Go to the hospital, get an MRI on it, get it checked, speak with an oncologist. Okay. On Friday, she had stage 4 breast cancer. That's not humanly possible. That never happens. You don't go from a symptom to an end-stage disease in a short period of time. But now with COVID, you do, with millions of people susceptible, because now they're taking 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 feet long. 6 feet long. They took it on a man's leg. Clogs, white clots. They look like rubber bands. And who told us about this? The medical community, Anthony Fauci, the New York Times, Stephanopoulos? No, a mortician in England found that he couldn't put embalming fluid into corpses because the embalming fluid wouldn't go in, formaldehyde wouldn't go in. So he got down there and he started opening up the veins with tweezers and pulling out all these long things he'd never seen in his career. And then he started putting them in vials. And he found out that 82% of all the people he was embalming had these in there. And even in the carotid artery, you see him cutting the carotid artery and just pulling all this out. It sounds morbid, but then all the morticians in the world say they're seeing the same thing and people were vaccinated. But the media wouldn't touch it. Then we start seeing these self-organizing nanoparticles that are not supposed to be there and are. Then we're seeing there's no off switch for the COVID vaccine causing your cells to create the spike protein. The spike protein in and of itself is a toxicant. And there's no off switch. We were told it's going to go in the delta muscle and it'll stay right there, the muscle. Then people found they could put a piece of metal up there, put a spoon, and it would stick to your arm because it was graphite in there. That's not
Gary, we could talk for a long time, and I'm sure you could talk a long time about the dangers of that. But I would like to really get back to.
Well, let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
Sure, please.
All right. The point of all this is in every area of life, not just COVID or the flu vaccine or the processing of the American diet, we would not allow any of this to occur, or when it did occur, we would stop it and hold those responsible for creating this accountable. But we have held no one accountable in any part of our life. The cereal makers for knowingly putting artificial coloring, artificial dyes, putting all the processed forever chemicals, knowing they're forever chemicals, not going to leave the body. We don't hold them accountable. We don't hold anyone accountable in the media for making the primary source of their income from big pharma or sugar or the meat industry. No one's held accountable. No one's held accountable for anything today because we've become a society that has been manipulated and pathologized. And to make sure that we just keep doing what they tell us to do without thinking, hence, is this a truth that I can live with? Is their truth more important than my truth? What will happen to my body? What will happen to my mind if I become a part of the woke culture or identity politics or critical race theory? Will I lose my appreciation of how we have lived cooperatively, even with the wars and even with the prejudices that have existed throughout time? But still, we've advanced slower than what we should have and not as complete as we could have. But at least we're aware today of things that we weren't aware of 100 years ago, 50 years ago. So why can't we learn? Because we're not trusting our own judgment. We're asking other people. I don't want to make up my mind. Make up my mind for me, would you please? Of course I will. I'm a journalist. Hence, our truth is never our truth.
Yeah, I think of Henry David Thoreau's quote, "The mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation," when you say that. And by the way, I was wondering, are you hopeful right now because of the Robert F. Kennedy coming in to really being able to make some changes in our healthcare system, the whole idea of making America healthy again? Do you think there's going to be some major changes in holding people accountable?
Okay, before Thoreau made that statement, he also said, you can either be a good citizen or a good person. Choose which. We have been a nation of people who have chosen to be good citizens. And that was a mistake because then there's no room for the outlier, the person that sees the truth and no one wants to hear it. We're going through a stage in our society for the last 50 years of intentional neglect. We're intentionally not wanting to know the truth because that truth would scare us. So we stay codified by someone else's reality, not our own, someone else's truth, not our own, and someone else's control over us, not our own control. And hence the outcome of that is the obesity, the disease. Now, if you go to GaryNull.com, you will see under articles, you will see in the last 10 days, I have written 11 articles in support of challenges to Robert Kennedy, meaning support for Robert, because he's not a medical doctor, he's not a scientist, he's not a dietitian or nutritionist, he's not a sociologist, he's a very good lawyer. And as a result, the entire medical industrial complex, the entire scientific industrial complex, the entire government corporate interest, the association, they're attacking him. So I'm preparing in-depth original investigative reports so he can defend himself. So when they get him before Senate hearings, say, Mr. Kennedy, are you a medical doctor? No. Are you a PhD scientist? No. Well, we've always selected people who are qualified. You're not qualified for any of this, are you? Right now, he would be kind of saying, well, I believe I'm not qualified as a doctor. No, don't take their bait. It's their game. Don't play it. So I've been sending Robert, and Children's Health Defense has been publishing these articles along with global research, how to say, sir, thank you for saying I'm not a doctor, not a PhD, because all the people in government, every single agency has been headed by a medical doctor from Harvard and Stanford, the best and brightest. And what the hell have they done for our children?
Mm-hmm.
What have they done for women? They pathologize women in menopause. They pathologize children. They have a disease that they call ADHD that supposedly 11 million children every day have to take a medication for the rest of their life, like Ritalin, in order to deal with. I am not a part of that group that have been bought and controlled. I'm not like Judy Gerberding, who went from overseeing vaccine safety at the CDC and head of the CDC to going to work for Merck and getting a $3 million bonus for now developing those vaccines. The revolving door, I'm not a part of that. You can't buy me. You don't have enough money to buy my loyalty, but you sure do, because we now find out that the big pharma that put 3,000 lobbyists to put money into every politician's pocket to see that they get elected. And as a result, 92% of all incumbents, no matter how sociopathic they are, they get reelected. When was the last time we had a spiritual-minded person in any office of government? Name me one in the history of American politics. You can't. We don't have a Gandhi. We don't have a Martin Luther King. We don't have anyone, a W.W. Du Bois. We have no one who has the character to be there.
What do you think of the appointing of Dr. McKay as the head of the FDA that Kennedy has proposed?
All of these people are limited. Look at it this way. When Dr. McCullough, arguably the world's best known and most cited cardiologist, nephrologist, over 1,000 citations, when he is attacked because he exposed what was wrong with the protocols, when those of us, and I was one of the signatories of the Great Barrington Declaration, where a professor from Harvard, a professor from Stanford University, and a professor from Oxford University has now, I think it's over 100,000 physicians, scientists signed saying, we got to stop what we're doing with COVID. It's wrong. It's wrong. Now, these are not anti-vax people. These are pro-vax people. McCullough, pro-vax people. Mahone, pro-vax. All these people are pro-vax. They're all orthodox. The fact that now being attacked, well, welcome to the club. Where were you, Dr. McCullough, over the last 40 years when good doctors chose to challenge that there's another way of approaching cardiology? You're a cardiologist, probably one of the most famous in America. But what about the cardiologist that actually reverses end-stage heart disease? 9 out of 9 patients who had to have heart transplants didn't have to because of one cardiologist was taking a different approach. Do you know who that doctor was?
No.
Think for a moment. 40 years ago, he published an article. Huh? Dr.
Kahn? I don't know.
No. 40 years ago, he published the first study in the New England Journal of Medicine. And then later.
Dr. Keyes?
No. Showing you could reverse all forms of heart disease with exercise, stress management, a healthy vegetarian diet. Dean Ornish. Dr. Dean Ornish. Not a single system of cardiology changed because he opened a door showing you we don't have to use statins and all these medications and stents, coronary bypass. And I filmed him. I was on his side, and the two of us debated 4 other doctors on PBS National 40 years ago because nobody wanted to know. Remember what Fritz Perl, the father of Gestalt psychology, said: a fear of knowing is a fear of doing. So what you don't want to know, you simply filter out. So trying to tell the truth to a person that has these filters is like pushing a rope up a hill. So now these doctors who are coming around Kennedy saying, look at this. I don't want those people in positions of power. They're not going to be any less orthodox. They're not going to change anything they do in their regular practice. I want people who have already shown by example, by courage, by risking it all, to say, I have a different approach to how children should be helped in becoming healthy. And those doctors, not one of them is in the sphere of Kennedy's mindset. I'm helping Kennedy to defend himself on every single issue. Today, I'm going to do a presentation on my own show, which starts shortly. And it's on Monday to Friday, noon to 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I'm doing an original in-depth investigation on the flu vaccine, which every single CDC, Health and Human Services, Anthony Fauci's National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease said, get your flu shot and get the COVID booster at the same time. Show me one example of a medical doctor from Harvard or any of these other asshole schools that says we're doing it wrong. You can't, because that person doesn't exist. Because if they did, they wouldn't be working in the government.
Gary, I would like to have you just talk a little bit about many of the documentaries that you've done on public.
I've done 103. Which one do you want to talk about?
I'm joking. I want our listening audience to understand who we're talking to here right now. You've done 103 documentaries. And how many on PBS, Public Broadcasting System?
On Rocky Mountain Television, 32. On PBS Atlanta with Alicia Steele, about 28. On New York PBS, on 3 for Women Only, How to Live Forever, and Get Healthy Now. But I've done documentaries on 3 types of documentaries. First are self-empowerment, which are very upbeat and very positive. They get you to a point where you're questioning, am I living an authentic life, my own life, or am I simply living based upon what other people's expectations of me? Am I being the good father, the good son, the good wife, the good mother, the good friend? And if I am I good to myself? Or am I just seeking other people's approval? Or am I challenging, even if it may cost me a friend or my reputation? Because if you don't take risks, you have no rewards in life. And therefore, the person's willing to stand out and say, you know something? I think that we should not be giving the children all these vaccines until we first have the single first vaccine that used a saline solution, a saltwater solution, as a placebo instead of another vaccine that was known to be toxic as a placebo. Because therefore, then you're allowing a vaccine to get approval that shouldn't have been approved. Now we have all these injuries that you deny. Then you make it impossible for people to go through a proper process and get reimbursed for their damages. Right now, I predict that we will have millions and millions of Americans injured or dead, starting now forward, than everything we've lost up to this point. And that includes Edward Dowd, from former BlackRock, a hedge fund manager, who found that insurance actuaries, where you have real death and people 50 and under, and you have up to a 40% increase in excess deaths each year, 40% increase. Now it's different per country, but the country that's got the most vaccines have the most deaths. We have all this evidence now that's accumulating, and now we'll see the truth. But I want to see the doctor who's been practicing pediatrics and not giving their children the Ritalin and not giving them a false diagnosis. I want to see the doctor that has helped a child or a woman or a patient back to good health. I want to see the doctor who says, hold on, don't get the vaccine, because first off, they lied about the CDC lied. I've exposed this repeatedly. I've exposed that about what percentage of flu shots actually prevent the flu. Because let's just say you live in Florida, where I'm at now, on my animal sanctuary where I rescue animals, over 7,500 animals I've rescued, got them back to health and safety and loving, and then find them a home for life.
Well, congratulations for that, Gary. And Gary, I really want to get back to the ultra processed foods right now, because we've got metabolic syndrome and insulin resistance. I want you to talk about that for a minute. That really is at epidemic levels. So talk about the dangers and the hazards of those conditions, please.
Okay, but before I get there, let me finish my thoughts. So one is I do documentaries that are hard-hitting, original investigative reporting, like Death by Medicine, The War on Health, Nuclear Power, and Knocking on the Devil's Door. I do all of these. Right now, the top one I'm doing is Manufacturing Madness, how we finally proven, it's been proven, it's not speculation, that you're not depressed or anxious because you've got a brain chemical imbalance, need a serotonin reuptake inhibiting drug in order to correct that. It only makes it worse. And in fact, I did the research and did a whole document on up to 90% of all the mass shooters were on these drugs. Bowling for Columbine, they were on the drugs. Eric Harris was taking a high dose of one of these drugs. And we're not looking at that. That's how much power Big Pharma has over news not to touch that subject. And this young girl, this teenager that just shot and killed 2 people, she was also on medication. So until we're willing to look for the truth, we're not going to find it. That's why I said earlier, start every single journey in life, every choice you make by looking for the truth. Now, I do a second type of documentaries on health. Ones I think you would appreciate. Overcoming arthritis naturally, overcoming heart disease naturally, overcoming diabetes naturally, overcoming autism, because I cured the first person that is known to be cured and presented that person, Jonathan Ortega, at a scientific conference where I was a keynote speaker down in Washington, D.C., 7,000 scientists. They'd never seen a person. The same thing I took on the same lecture. I took down a woman who had end-stage Alzheimer's, and she was completely normal. Both were completely normal, and that's what I do. And I also reversed AIDS. There's a documentary on that was done called The Cost of Denial. What happens when we deny that there are other ways of approaching disease? Because we're a monotheistic society. We accept one truth, even when it's wrong and proven wrong, we still stick to it because of our intellectual and emotional comfort. So I got all those documentaries on diseases, but then on depression, anxiety, high blood pressure, pain, fatigue, etc. Then I have a whole bunch of disease documentaries on self-empowerment, positive, upbeat, lifting films. My latest one I just finished yesterday is called Empty Your Life. What it means is take a moment and just ask yourself, what am I responsible for? I don't need to be anymore. What do I have in my mind, my life I don't need anymore? Let's just do a spring cleaning, clean it out, let it go. And that opens it up for new things that are vital to me today to take its place. So those 3 types of documentaries, all of which are on GaryNull.com. Now, back to the processed foods. All the things you mentioned, diabetes, can be reversed. And I have, if you want to see the proof of this, go to GaryNull.com, scroll down, and you'll see testimonials. And those are real people, unrehearsed, uncoached, telling you their stories, including medical doctors. And then I also am just now preparing for number 6 clinical study. I've done over 100 clinical studies. Just so that your audience knows, I have a PhD in human nutrition and public health science. I also am a senior research fellow and director of the anti-aging division of the Institute of Applied Biology for 36 years. I've published a lot of articles, over 950, and I've done 164 successful outcomes in nutritional studies. So I have a wide range of background from which to apply insights to help different people. And it all starts, no matter what disease, I never look at the disease, instead I look at what is the probable cause. What was out of balance in your life? Because you only get disease when there's a lack of balance. So were you too successful? Did you put more energy and time into being successful or increasing your standard of living than you did in helping yourself and growing, spending quality time with your wife or children or friends? Because if we don't, then as one part of us succeeds, another part fails concomitantly. So when it comes to diabetes, I don't look at your blood sugar level. My caretaker was just having a conversation with this morning that his blood sugar went from 200 to 78. Now he's in the normal range. And it wasn't because of any medication, it's because of his lifestyle. If you're exercising, eating low glycemic foods, drinking low glycemic beverages, getting rid of caffeine and dairy and meat, and having something positive to think about each day, putting something in your life that's more important than your fear, your anger, your negativity, your uncertainties, your insecurities, your guilt and shame, get rid of those and put optimism, put a positive notion on life.
Yeah.
And watch
Well,
the
Gary,
difference.
again, we have limited time here, and there's so many questions I want to ask you. But I want to talk a little bit about how things have shifted, and we have these really bizarre diets that are coming out and flourishing today, and people are gravitating towards the paleo and keto, and now the carnivore, and they're bashing carbohydrates, they're bashing these grains and beans. What is your read on that?
I don't try to open up anyone's mind. I don't have an argument about what good choices you have. All my friends that we go out to dinner, they'll eat the high protein diet, they'll eat the big steak, and I eat my vegan plate. We never discuss that. We discuss other things because all you're going to do by pointing out to people that something they're doing is not in their best interest is there's assumption they don't know better. We know better. My mother died, my father died, all of my relatives dead, all of them, big family, all died. They were nice people. They were loving people, fun people, but they also made it very clear that they were responsible for the choices they made. They were comfortable in their choices. So after a big meal with a big 2-inch steak, my dad is smoking, mom, everyone at the table smoking, then he'd go over and lay on a couch like he was in a coma. The last thing you want to do is try to convince someone that what they've been doing is wrong. You're only going to alienate them. If they come to you and say, you know something, I shouldn't feel this way. I shouldn't have this pot belly. I have fatigue. Is there something that I'm doing wrong? Then they're asking for your help, in which case, absolutely, then you can share with them the right choices. Otherwise, rein in the desire to save the world.
I think that's good advice, and I really
need
that because
to interfere in other people's lives.
Yeah, I'm so often trying to argue with people about how the dangers of these bizarre
Why are
diets.
you doing that? Excuse me 1 second. Why are you trying to convince other people?
Because the evidence is clear, the research
That's
is
not
clear.
important. There's something more primal here. Look, the most important thing you can do in life is wake up each day with a reason to wake up each day, to have a purpose that exceeds your pain, your disease, your dysfunction, your body politic, your limitations, your fears. You've got to have something more because the world is such, you cannot share two energies with equal intensity at the same time. So if you wake up uncertain, boom, that becomes everything else you see that day. That's your energy for the day. That's negative to your DNA. It can change your DNA. But if you wake up with a positive and you're going to do something to overcome whatever limitations you've been faced with, boom, then a positive disposition suddenly changes your energy because everything in life is an energy. Everything.
I really love that. You've changed my perception. You changed my thinking process. I really believe that because it's a waste of time trying to convince these people because you're not going to convince them. They think they're right. And if you just go forward with a positive mindset and do what you're doing and be an example. I'm 75 years old, Gary. I play one-on-one basketball with college students at Kent State University, and I beat 90% of them one-on-one. And I do triathlons. I do sprint triathlons. I work out in weights, and I'm sure that you're doing the same, but we just got to be an example. And I really appreciate that perspective.
I believe in living a humble life and being the quiet person in the room. If you saw me in my normal day-to-day activities, I listen. If someone asks me a specific question, I'm happy to answer it. because I find that the people most likely to change are people who are already trying to change. And maybe they don't have the right insights, the right support system. Maybe they want to know something and practice it, but they don't have that knowledge. Those are the people most likely to succeed. Now, I've done 5 clinical studies on aging that no one else has ever done. It's supported. In fact, I just sent a letter yesterday to Dr. Ronald Klatz and Dr. Robert Goldman, MD, PhD, the heads of the American Academy for Anti-Aging Medicine, and also the heads of the World Anti-Aging Association, also Bill Falloon of Life Extension Foundation, also the Clock Foundation, because they have all given their input where I was willing to take the time, thousands of hours, take a group of people, put them on campus, beautiful place down in Texas, and work with them all day, every day for 2 weeks, then follow them for 3 months at home, where they'd stay on the protocols. For the first time, through the methylation DNA studies, we can show that we can reverse the aging process. In 2 weeks on campus and 3 months, we reversed the aging process by 4.6 years. Mm-hmm. But then some of the people didn't do well. And I wondered, why did you not do well? And some others did very well. So if everyone did the same as the people did well, we would have changed their life by about 7 years. So now I'm doing the next study in May, but I'm starting it in January, because I believe that we first have to deal with the crisis and issues in people's lives at the emotional and functional level. Help people realize that there's a way through everything. Get them healthy over a 4-month period. Then when they go on campus, they're not just overcoming high blood pressure and elevated cholesterol, et cetera. Now they're in a good space mentally, because I'm going to be working with them every Sunday evening on a conference call for about 3 hours. So then when we leave that and they go home to be followed for the next 3 months, now they're in a groove. It's like, you've done marathons. I've done 89 marathons, won the gold medal in the Los Angeles Marathon, the Jamaica Marathon, the Jersey Shore Marathon, et cetera. In fact, just a year and a half ago here in Florida, I broke 2 records in the 3,000 meter and the 2 miles in the state championship. With
Gary, how old are you right now, Gary?
But I only tell you my biological age.
Okay, what's your biological age?
39.
Good for you. Okay, so tell us. Give us Gary Null's daily routine so we can kind of understand what type of lifestyle you have. Give us your routine, your day.
I don't think people are going to do what I do, but I'm a vegan. I have about 7 glasses of fresh made juice a day. I take different supplements based on my needs. I exercise for about an hour in the morning on the track. Then I exercise in the gym. I spend a lot of time. I counsel people every day for free. I've never charged in all my career a single penny for helping people. I do it for free. My mother said, if you have a gift, give a gift. And that's when I came to New York with $12 in my pocket a long time ago. In any case, I write, I research. When I'm in New York, I'm at the Institute each day. I can work a day or night. I started the Tri-State Healing Center, where we reversed AIDS conditions in 18 people, so they were seronegative. They weren't HIV positive and totally healthy. 1,200 of them still had HIV virus, but they're totally healthy. I had a medical staff of 22, and we helped people. And that was the key, helping people live a longer life. The key is, do you want to live a longer life? If you do, what are you willing to give up? Because you can't just keep adding stuff in without taking stuff out. You know, just imagine if you could never defecate, and yet the food you're eating was good. There's a time when you're going to be backed up so much, you're going to create autotoxemia. We have to get to a point where we're willing to say, I need to cleanse out my thoughts. I need to cleanse and honor my body. But you can't honor your body if you haven't honored your mind. And there's where the game is. Who controls your mind? Now it's artificial intelligence going to try to do that. They want to control our currency. They want to control where we live in 15-minute cities. They want to control that we're vaccinated and have identity cards. And I say no. I'm the only person who has a right to control myself and my life. So every day I write articles, I counsel, I do radio broadcasts, I do something that hopefully someone in the audience will appreciate and then carry forward in their own life. And then the result is it's cumulative. So everything you do that you shouldn't do, karmic justice will be there later on to knock on your door and say, okay, I'm here.
Now,
Who are you?
You've also written a lot of books, Gary. How many books have you written?
I've written 103 books. My latest books are this thick. They're 1,600-page book. It's called The Clinician and Patient's Guide to Natural Healing. Every single citation comes from the National Library of Medicine, and it's for the patient and for the doctor to see that there's a natural approach to everything we do. We have to start living authentic lives. We have to start looking for where we want to be. There are 5 principles that I created that I live by. You've got to be in the right place at the right time with the right ideas, have the right support system, and be the right person. And everything just flows. Mm-hmm. You'll flow like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers or Eleanor Powell danced. If you get something that's not working, don't work harder. The biggest mistake we made is we just double down. We just put too much energy into something. Look at what's not working and change it. And the ability to change then means you keep the dominant energy in life is positive. Because the moment the dominant energy is negative, oh, I'm a victim, I can't do that. Well, I'm a victim, I can't trust anybody. I'm a person that is optimistic. I'm honest. I see something for what it is, but I don't allow that negativity to impact who I am. Because I know that what can help me and help others is continue to reaffirm the positive.
Gary, we have a lot of people in this country who are fearful of cancer and fearful of, especially dying of something like that. The slow death of cancer. What would be your suggestion to people to help to allay that fear that they have, and what could they do to be able to prevent that?
I look at it differently. I would say a person that has fears is afraid of living an authentic life. So therefore they disguise their fear by saying, well, I can't do that and I can't do that and I don't want to do that and I can't give up this and don't get me into my uncomfortable state of mind. I want to be comfortable. So we take the course of least resistance, which is always the wrong course. So yeah, life wasn't meant to be figured out. It was meant to be lived as authentically as you can. And there's no sweet spot where everything is perfect. We're always going to have challenges of a different type. Part of the joy of life is knowing, yeah, I went through that and I survived. Think of it this way. Think of how many people in your audience right now survived waking up at 2 and 3 in the morning to take care of their children's diapers. All right, but they did. Think how many people became really good friends. They mastered being a good friend. Think of the people that mastered a good relationship. Think of the people that mastered their skills and hobbies. So we should give ourselves a lot more credit for the things we do right than blaming ourselves and self-loathing for what we do wrong. Because when you look at what you do and you learn a lesson from it, you don't get angry with yourself. Say, okay, now I know that. Because the big problem in life is not when you smoke a cigarette or eat a hamburger or have a glass of wine or beer or that day you didn't exercise. It's when you do it 10,000 times. And now then you have tipped everything to have a negative outcome. It's just you don't know when that negative outcome will come. You only live about 26,000 days. That's the average person, 26,000. How many of those were formative, going through schools? How many were in the beginning of relationships? How many were at the beginning of careers? How many were getting your house and getting settled, becoming a part of a community, getting the feedback? All those, you think, well, these don't really count, but the day's going to come when I can really live the life I want to live. And there was a time in America from 1940s to the mid-70s when that was the best time in America to be alive. Mm-hmm. Now we have people who are living 3 years shorter because of COVID, and now it's going up to 5 years shorter. But I'm also working with people who are adding years onto their life with no diseases, because there are no diseases natural to the aging process. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, osteoporosis, those are not normal. Those are average, and enough people have them, so we suffer from mass psychosis, saying, well, his kid's got ADD, and my kids, they're taking his drugs. That doesn't mean that it's real. The fact that someone tells you to do something doesn't mean you should. Always try to find the truth in what you do before you do something, then watch the outcome. It'll be completely different. I work with some people from the beginning. One of them is named Sid Howard. Look him up. He's a legend. Little guy. He's a legend. And if you go up on GaryNull.com, go under lifetime careers, under athleticism, you'll see he and I racing together because he did it differently. Thelma Wilson, Louise Nottage, Joan Rowland. These are Sam Skinner. These are people who wanted to do racing differently. We're still all racing, still winning, still setting athlete of the year. I've been athlete of the year in New York City and in Florida multiple times, breaking all records. Going to the World Games every time I've gone to the World Games, come back with a gold medal. And it's not that I'm better. I'm not smarter. I'm not. It's just I do things different. Because if you look at how we're doing everything, then why would you reasonably expect a different outcome if we're just repeating patterns of behavior? And the same is true in our lives. Are our lives just a series of rituals? So we have to follow the same ritual every day? Or we're going to be doing that day differently, putting real purpose and meaning in it. It means we have to surrender something, and then we're living a different life. I'm looking at the clock here, and I got to go.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Gary. This has really been interesting because not only are you like one of the most prolific nutritionists, researchers, a person has really educated Americans about the benefits of taking charge of their health. But now I've realized that you're much more than that. You're a philosopher as well. And I appreciate your sharing your wisdom and knowledge. And it makes so much sense. And it's very, very relaxing to hear how you approach life. And I really appreciate how you've been able to simplify how we need to take an approach to life that is not in any way demanding of getting people to want to change, but just to be a change in ourselves and be an example. So I appreciate that.
Those are very kind words. Thank you. Let me leave you with this thought. We can either get to a destination, reach a goal, and go, wow. But then we turn around and we think, oh, wow. Did I put so much time and energy into my goal that I lost my friendships, quality time with my loved ones? When did I take a break and just spend a day relaxing? Or we can say, what do I want to put into my efforts to reach my goal? And then only make the choices that allow you to maintain your balance in all things so that you're sharing your experience without imbalancing it and depriving people of the gifts that you have. Never confuse the complexity of a problem with the simplicity of its answer and solution.
Very nice.
Right?
Very
And by the way, anyone in your audience, I put out a really fun, upbeat, positive, empowering newsletter. And if they want it for free, they can have it for free. One day a week you get it, or small $9 a month and you get it every day. But go to GaryNull.com and you'll see newsletter. Otherwise, thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your program and to share what I could with your audience.
Thank you so much, Gary. And I'm sure we'll be talking again. Take care. God bless you.
Okay, bye.
Well, that was pretty